A look at a Texas lawsuit that could impact access to abortion across the country, including right here in Massachusetts. Today, a federal judge in the state heard arguments in a case looking to reverse the FDA approval of a common abortion medication. More than 2 decades ago, the agency approved mifepristone, which, when taken along with another drug, misoprostol, causes a medically induced abortion. Together, those drugs are used in more than half of all abortions in the U.S. And though the lawsuit was filed in Texas, depending on the ruling from this Texas judge, who actually was appointed in 2019 by President Trump, it could halt the sales of mifepristone in all states nationwide, regardless of local abortion laws. Joining me now to discuss all of this and the impact it has on abortion rights across the country is Carol Rose, Executive Director of the ACLU of Massachusetts. Hi, Carol.
Hi, great to be here.
So talk to me about the merits of this Texas case and how it could have such a widespread effect.
Right. Well, so this is a case that was filed intentionally in Amarillo, Texas, by a group of anti-abortion extremists who were particularly forum shopping. They wanted to have Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, who has a history of ruling against things like contraception and LGBTQ equality. And so they're asking this judge if he would put a ban on the use of FDA's approval of mifepristone, an incredibly safe drug that's been used for over 20 years, in an effort to try to ban access to abortion nationwide. And so today was a really high stakes hearing on that case that took about 4 hours today, and we're expecting a ruling from the judge any moment.
Why would it impact the abortion laws or rights that we have here in Massachusetts?
Well, first, to be really clear, no matter what happens today, abortion will still be legal here in Massachusetts, at least for the time being. So there's a number of ways the judge could rule. First, he could grant an emergency injunction in part. So he would uphold the FDA's approval of mifepristone, which happened back in 2000, but say that the FDA has to reinstate certain restrictions, like you have to show up in person at a doctor's office in order to get the drugs, which would obviously really negatively impact people who live in remote or rural areas, or people who don't have the ability to travel to a doctor's office. Or the judge might also issue an emergency injunction in full that would say the FDA has to stop the approval completely of this particular abortion medicine, mifepristone, and that would impact the ability for everybody nationwide. Now, it's going to be challenged almost immediately, so people should know that. And there are other ways that people can access abortion care. Misoprostol is another drug often used in conjunction with mifepristone, but misoprostol would still be available, and so abortions will still continue. But this is part of a nationwide strategy by anti-abortion extremists to try to ban abortion for everyone throughout the country.
Well, that was going to be my next question. We saw Roe v. Wade be overturned, and there was a prediction out there that we would see cases like these pop up across the country.
Right. Well, I mean, I think this is part of a larger strategy. So, here in Massachusetts, our legislature and our governor have done wonderful work in ensuring that we have the strongest protections for abortion patients and providers here, as well as, by the way, these drugs are used for miscarriage care. And so when we recognize that abortion is really health care, we see that this is a direct attack on access to health care across the country. Because the Supreme Court ruled in the Dobbs case overthrowing Roe versus Wade that there's no federal constitutional protection, now we have a patchwork with each state having its own approach to ensuring or denying abortion care. This attempt to try to get Judge Kacsmaryk to issue a nationwide ban to force the FDA to ban access to mifepristone is sort of a test case to see if they can begin to get the ban nationwide, and then to move in other ways to ban all forms of abortion care nationwide and miscarriage care.
What do we see as the danger of this type of thing? So if this drug, which has been proven safe for 20 years, then is off of the market, what happens then?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, it is incredibly safe. I mean, this was the focus of today's hearing. Judge Kacsmaryk was asking the lawyers what they thought about this sort of process for approving mifepristone, and it took more than 4 years to get the FDA approval back in 2000, and it is safer than Tylenol. It is safer than Viagra. So this is an incredibly safe abortion medicine. It's an incredibly safe medicine. And so, the impact that this is going to have is once again to make it more difficult for people to access abortion and miscarriage care. Here in Massachusetts, we're likely to see an increase in people coming to Massachusetts or seeking help from Massachusetts providers as a way to continue to get access to abortion care. Because people know that if you need this in your life, you're going to find a way to get there. It's just harder for people who are poor, harder for people who live in rural areas. And we at the ACLU really believe strongly that it's important that everyone have equal access. Abortion care is health care, and people should have access to health care.
I know that when these cases come up, doctors who do provide abortion care tend to end up being targets, and whether that's folks trying to target their licensure, folks target whether, the operations that they're performing or the prescriptions that they're writing, in terms of legal matters, like, are there doctors that are trying to shore up and create protections for themselves right now?
Well, absolutely. And the ACLU, working together with our allies at Reproductive Equity Now here in Massachusetts, have actually opened an abortion legal hotline for patients or providers who have questions about making sure that they stay out of trouble with the law. And they can call that number at 833-309-6301. That's 833-309-6301. In addition, our allies over at Planned Parenthood of Massachusetts have assured us that they have the ability to continue to provide abortion and a miscarriage care for people who need it. And so we in Massachusetts are really leading the nation. We have the best law in the nation to make sure people can access abortion care when they need it. And so despite these efforts that are taking place in remote places like Amarillo, Texas, to try to change the law for everybody across the country, the ACLU and our allies are going to continue to fight back against that, continue to ensure that both patients and providers can access this fundamental right to health care.
How successful, in your opinion, your experience, what is this case in Texas going to be, and others? Is it sort of like there's no way to know? Does it necessarily depend on each case-by-case circumstance?
Well, it's going to be litigated. A lot of lawyers are going to be busy for the next few years because the Supreme Court has left us with this patchwork of state by state different conflicting laws. And so I think this case is going to be fought out for a long time. There's another case that's coming from attorneys general out of Washington state that are actually challenging the FDA, saying they shouldn't have any restrictions and going in the other direction. The ACLU has a similar case from 2017. And so there's going to be battles in the courts on both sides. And so I think the most important thing is, in the meantime, that the people in Massachusetts and people who are coming to Massachusetts understand that they're still protected to the full extent of the law here in Massachusetts, and that the ACLU and our allied groups are there to make sure that access to abortion and miscarriage care is available not only in the law, but in reality.
All right, Carol Rose, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.